Hello, this is going to be the makeup for the witch. So starting out with the same base from the base video, and then I'm just taking this big fluffy brush and I'm going to go into a very cool toned brown, and I'm going to kind of dab that in a like squarish contour shape because we really want to shadow out the face. And then as I put that on, I'm just going to blend it from the top down because I want to create that real like cut shape on the lower part of the face. So as you can see, I'm just adding the product at the top and then blending it down without blending out that top line too much, but also not leaving it too sharp. You want to find a nice balance. And I'm just going in and adding a little more product at the top just so it is nice and defined. I don't want that to get lost in the stage lights or just in the coloring of the face either. And just making sure that that is all nice and blended out. And I'm going back in with my beauty blender just to, like I said, make sure there are no harsh lines on the bottom. Once that contour is how we like it, I'm going to go in with a little tiny bit of blush, just putting it on the high points of my face and blending it down, but really focusing the pigment on the higher points of my face and basically avoiding the apples of my cheeks because I want to bring the color focus up and keep it away from the very front. So we're just doing really light on that, but enough that it doesn't, the face doesn't get washed out on stage. So now I'm going to go in with a smaller angled eyeshadow brush, but still a nice fluffy brush. And using that same cool tone brown, I am going to contour a very straight, very thin nose. So as you can see, I'm actually putting the pigment on top of my nose and like blending it onto the side and just really bringing it in thin. I really want to straighten out the definition of the nose and make it nice and sharp. And so I'm just blending that out in the corners, making sure that I have that nice light pigment right in the center of the bridge of my nose, and just rounding out the edge a tiny bit, not too much. And I am just really blending that out because I want that nose to be nice and thin and pointed. And then I am blending those upper edges kind of by my eyebrow and those outer edges so it doesn't look like I just have lines on my nose, so it looks like an actual contour because we want it nice and blended to make the shape look a little better. And then any excess product I'm just kind of rubbing off on my jaw just to keep everything nice and sharp and connected. And then going in with that same cool brown, I'm putting a little on my temples just to hollow out the face a little bit. And then making sure that that is nice and blended out. This will hollow the face a little bit and will also square the shape face a little bit. So then I'm going to go in with this really neutral brown tone, and I'm going to just give myself a really nice base to work on my eyelids. This is going to be, like I said, just the canvas to add all of the other colors that we are going to do. So once I have that where I like it, I'm going to come in with this much deeper brown tone, and I'm going to put it in my outer corner and blend it into my outer corner and into my crease. This is going to darken up the whole eyeshadow look while creating a nice gradient. And again, I'm just patting that pigment in before going in with the brush again and blending it out. I want the corners of it to be pretty sharp and up. I want the direction of the eyeshadow to be moving up the face. Now using a slightly smaller brush, I'm going to come in and pat that darker brown underneath my eyelid and connect it up to the eyeshadow that's on top. And this is just going to really angle out those eyes, doing it in this upward motion. And then using that same one, I am just sharpening the edge of that by blending it up in this kind of triangular shape. And just adding a little more dark in the corner just because I want to really shadow out that outer corner. And then again, just blending it into the rest of the eye makeup, really focusing those darks, shadows on my outer crease and outer corner. So now I'm going to go in with a very thin felt tip liner and we are going to create the wing. I want this to be nice and sharp, so I'm first following my lower lash line and just bringing it up into this really nice sharp line, and then I am doing kind of a curve as I go back down to the actual lash line of my eyes. And as you can see, this makes a really sharp, like curved upwards wing. I don't want it to be too square. I want it to really have that nice, clean cat eye curve. And then I'm just sharpening the very edges of the wing and making sure they're even before going in and finishing out the rest of my waterline. And I'm going to bring it all the way across my eyelid and shadow out my inner corner a little bit. I want to create a really sharp inner corner on the top, and then we will continue that sharpness with some eyeshadow on the lower lid. Like I said, I'm just extending that inner corner of my eye so it is nice and sharp. And now that I am happy with that eyeliner, I'm going to go in with this thin brush and I'm going to start creating the eyebrow. So just following the upper curve of my eyebrow naturally and making it really sharp and extending it out. I want to make these really thin towards the end and only thicker towards the front and middle of the eyebrow. And I'm also extending these a little extra longer than my eyebrows. This is going to create that really nice sharp look. And then I'm extending that outer corner. Like I said, I want these to be really nice and sharp on both sides, so I am just following that really thin, nice, sharp shape. And then, as you can see here, I am just extending the front upwards a little bit, just to kind of give it that like villainous eyebrow look. You don't have to do much, but just adding a little bit there can really add dimension to the eyebrows. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in with another really thin brush and I am going to use a black eyeshadow to start packing that color in the lower lash line. I like using an eyeshadow rather than a pencil liner because I feel like you can have a lot more precision with the thinness of the line, and it can be really nice and sharp if you are using an eyeshadow that has a really strong pigment. And so then I'm just extending that all the way around my lower lash line. So now that I'm happy with how the liner looks, I'm going to go in with a kohl liner. A pencil liner will also work for this, and I'm just going to actually darken my waterline. This is just going to connect that lower lash line that we put in. You can go all the way. I don't prefer to, and I didn't right now because I had to wipe it off and do 3 other makeup looks after this, so I just kind of kept it to the outer corner because for me that's easier to clean off, and also it still looks nice and connected. And now I'm going in with this blue tone, and I'm going in with a stiff brush so I can really get the pigment on, and I'm doing these big blue lines starting from the outer corner of my lower lash line, and I want them to curve around and then blend a little into the lower lash line. But you'll see me in a second just kind of pat the pigment in because it wasn't swiping very well. That is a really good way to make sure that you have the pigment on. is just get a bunch of it on the brush and really pat it in that shape once you have the initial shape that you want. And so, as you can see, I'm also feathering out the little ends a little bit so it is more of a smudge than a full line. And yep, there it is, just pressing that pigment in there. And if it's a little messy, that's okay, because we want these to be messy. This is not supposed to be a clean line. And then I am just kind of buffing out the edges and making sure that it is nice and feathered out. And now the best way I like to do this is take a felt tip liner because I can get that sharp corner, and I'm going to extend the edges of my lips out just a little bit. I don't want it to be too drastic, but just enough to sharpen those edges. And then I'm going to clean up the line a little bit so that once I line my lips with a black lip liner, it makes it nice and clean. So now that those corners are done, I am going to grab a black lip liner and I'm going to line my lips. Just starting from the top is how I like to do it, just because it helps you get that kind of sharper Cupid's bow and shape, and it gives you more of a guide for the rest of your lip liner. And once I get down to my outer corners, I'm just connecting it right to the natural curve of my lips and where that outer corner, that false outer corner is. So I am just making sure everything looks nice and connected, and this gives that really sharp outer corner illusion on the lips. And I'm just gonna even out that lower line a little bit and thicken it out. And once I'm happy with the lip liner, I'm going to take a Q-tip and I'm going to just diffuse the inner part of the liner. Do not diffuse the outer edge because we want that to be nice and sharp, but just where it is on the inside of the line, I'm going to diffuse it out so that we can add the red in, and so it will look nice and blended. So it's not going to look like I have like comic book style lines. It's just going to look black towards the very edge of my lips, and this will create a really nice gradient. And now I'm going to go in with a bright red, and I am just going to add that into the interior and kind of blend it out with the edge of the lips. And now I'm just going to go in with that same Q-tip, and I'm just going to buff it out just a little bit just to make sure that we can really see that color. And then after it has dried on my lips for a second, I will go back in with a little bit of red on the top, just so the red really shows up on that top lip. It doesn't look like, you know, mostly black. So here I am after it's sat for a second, and I am just adding a little more pigment on top of the top lip just so it blends out nice and smooth. This is going to create that really nice smooth ombre effect on the lips, so it all blends in together. And don't worry about putting the red over the black. That's what you want to do, so it blends together really nicely. And now I'm just taking this brush and I'm getting into a red eyeshadow, and I'm just dipping it into the red eyeshadow and putting it on my lips in these little patting motions. This will help set the lips, especially if you're using a liquid lipstick, and it will also kind of bring that color out and make it pop a little bit. But mostly it's just so that this will set the lips so it should not smudge during the show at all. And then that is the makeup for the witch. Thank you!